Yes.
So, a couple things. One is, a lot of this is being sort of dictated by the city code, which is basically the law of the city.
That's
And
interpreted by
city
attorneys,
But
right?
it's changed.
City attorneys.
But it's changed and amended by the city council.
Okay.
And so there's something in the city code that folks think ought to be different, and you take up, that's
So we go to the city council.
business with the city council.
Okay.
If there's something in sort of bureau policy, and that's a book that's about yay thick and, all that sort of thing, that resides with the chief of police. Now, we can, the CRC can recommend changes in policy directly to the Bureau. We can recommend to IPR that they push the Bureau to change, or we can make the recommendation directly to the City Council and say, and particularly the Police Commissioner, which today is the mayor, is the Police Commissioner, and says, you really ought to get the Police Bureau to change this policy. And so those are kind of the policy avenues that you have. Does that help?
Yeah, so I keep hearing the IPR being referenced. What has the IPR accomplished recently, like in changing?
They hear.
Well, actually, we have two IPR staff members. Let them answer.
Derek?
Perfect time, Derek.
I mean, in what means?
I mean, in changing what we're talking about, like anything significant.
So complaints that have funneled through our office have led to discipline of officers. That's in our annual report on the magnitude of 30-plus officers per year. Typically, we see at least one officer terminated annually.
Okay, so 30 officers, how many serve on the force?
1,000.
Anybody know that?
1,900.
900 and some.
So out of 1,000, only 30 annually.
Per year.
Okay.
I have a question. I would like to know, okay, we're looking at you guys' job support system, and I'm quite sure you guys are looking at this to help as well. So what can we do on the outside as a unit to help you guys gain the power that you need to make this happen?
Well, when it comes to what this work group is doing, I hope that we're communicating about what changes we want to see in these directives, these rules that the police operate by, and
I
we're going to
haven't
need.
heard any, I haven't,
I
haven't
actually
heard
think that
anything
might
like
be
that.
coming.
Let's talk about it so that, I'm sorry.
We haven't published these
Explain to them what
proposed
can we do
changes yet,
to help them
but
make power.
we were just talking about this question of disengagement, but we need help, we need support from the community so that the city council and the decision makers will say, this is a good idea to make these changes, and people will support it, people want it. That's one of the things that can help.
People all work in this building?
I'm sorry?
You guys all work in this building?
No, none of
Oh,
us.
okay.
We're all volunteers.
Well, I'd like to know who I can complain about. That security guard down there was, he could have been nicer. He threw me and my son out because we had signs. But he was very rude and in my face, just like the cops. People need to be nicer. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't come in here aggressive. I walked in the door and he was very mean, so who can I complain to? Because that was just, he was rude to me.
Was that just now?
It was about an hour ago. I've been standing out in the freezing cold for an
Irene is
hour.
the one.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he didn't need to be like that. He was mean, and he was snotty too. He goes, do you think? He goes, the signs are political, and I said, they are. He goes, do you think? And then he came towards us, like, it was just
Aggressive.
rude and aggressive, and he's just a security guard, so who can I complain to?
We'll find out. We'll let
I
you know.
witnessed
Okay, well, I'm
that.
gonna go back outside and freeze.
I have a question.
This man has been.
Yeah, I've been wanting to get to the statement that this fellow second from the end never quite got to, which was the continuation from, what is the alternative mechanism that what is it, please?
If, and so we're clear, I found the opinion from the person that back in 2012 was the director of IPR, who specifically says that neither IPR or the CRC had authority as independent body to review officer-involved shootings and in-custody deaths. And then she goes on to give her reason. If people want in such situations, officer-involved shootings and in-custody deaths, reviewed so that there is at least public scrutiny, it's going to take, one, a change to the ordinance, which is city council, and number two, this opinion goes on to say, we also reviewed the Portland Police Association contract. Section 62.1.3 of the contract approved by council states IPR has no authority to conduct deadly force investigations. So what they're saying is the collective bargaining agreement between the city and the union also takes away jurisdiction from the CRC. If council made clear that if a citizen, any of you, disagreed with a police finding relating to a death or an in-custody or a officer-involved shooting, and then filed an appeal with IPR, and then the process would go through, there would at least be public scrutiny of any such appeals. Okay?
Okay.
Including the CRC decision is subject to a public meeting. The meeting with the chief, if we disagreed with the chief, is subject to a public meeting. And if it's still not resolved, the council makes its final decision in a public meeting. Follow me? So that all types of decisions, be it the person was just simply rude to me, going to the other extreme of in-custody deaths or officer-involved shootings, everybody then would be treated, all these things would be treated the same, and the public would have a right to see how the city treats all of these cases. Right now, they stop at the most serious types of situations. So ultimately with council.
So let me see if I got this right, because this is really important for me to get straight in my head. The two ways that we could go about making the changes we want to see here to make the police process transparent to the public would be to change the ordinance that prohibits the IPR from taking on that responsibility. And also, we would need to take and get the police union of the standalone police union of Portland to change its bargaining stance on this. That could be, I can see the city council, but my God, man, what are you talking about? How do you do that?
Good, thank you very much for asking that. I was hoping someone would ask that question. May I suggest to you, it's going to take, and I mean this in capital letters, community-wide support. It's going to take people like
Well,
you.
that part
It's going to
we
take
got.
Alpina ministerial like. It's going to take talking to groups like the City Club of Portland. I'm serious. If you really want change, given the fact we're talking about collective bargaining agreement, you're really talking about true community-wide support, including all the news media and different groups. So whatever it takes to try and get that community-wide support, I respectfully suggest, I agree with you, it is a tremendous task. And if you're really serious in wanting to accomplish this, I respectfully suggest that's what you're going to take, is I think you're going to have people up here who volunteer their time saying that we're willing to work with you to help get that accomplished.
I have a question about, you mentioned earlier, employee-employer confidentiality.
Right.
That relationship. Who pays the who pays the chief of the Portland Police Department? Who pays?
We all do.
They all do.
We do.
So don't we employ them? It just seems like a pretty simple logic.
Right, but we have
Well,
to.
So
there's
shouldn't they be
this
accountable?
municipal body called the city. Technically, we don't.
Who we
really
also pay.
Yes.
So aren't all of these entities really just accountable to us? I mean, just to sort of.
Only if we tell them to be.
Right.
Only if we demand. We don't sit back and wait for the laws to change if they don't benefit us. We
I
have
think-
to be a powerful people. We have to use our.
If you want
voice.
change,
We
you have to make the leaders make the
Please don't
change.
interrupt her.
No, and one of the reasons why we're here is because they've identified that they have no power. Everybody's identified that they have no power, but if we can back up what they acknowledge and what they have set down as their recommendations and their directives and all that, if our people power can back that up, that's how you make the change.
We gotta stand
That's how you
tall.
break down those alliances, because our benefits need to be bigger than what the city's benefits are. And if the union is basically saying that the benefit of saving and protecting his officers is bigger than the saving and protecting of the rights of the people that they're supposed to serve and protect, then that's bullshit. And we can only do something about it.
It seems as if there's a bureaucratic firewall.
It's because we're not at the
Which
table.
is always
We have to be at the
said.
table.
Yeah, always that.
The reason why they don't have the power is because the
So
people aren't.
so far, nobody has even mentioned the criminal part of all of this.
Right.
The criminal code, the criminal justice system, it's got nothing to do with what you people are talking about.
That's right.
The criminal justice system is a separate system that controls whether a policeman has violated the law. These people don't decide that, but the criminal justice system has to, and that's controlled by the district attorney.
And statute.
And, yeah. So that's a whole different subject, and that's what we're all missing in this argument, is that there are two different systems here.
Two-tiered?
One is that they do not overlap.
Yes, it's one that run the people and it's one that run the bank. One that control the money and one that control the people.
Can I just add to what Teresa was saying, how we need you? I wanted to say that in the last 5 years, IPR has gone through making several ordinance changes. And when that happens, we really need you at council to come in and support and sign up and testify and support the ordinance changes that we're trying to put together. We're going to be working on other ordinances, so please show up and testify and help those ordinances pass.
Did we get a specific response on how we the people can give you guys that
Just like what it is that we said, the complaint, like what our complaints are, they won't know that there
We
are
gotta stay at the
complaints.
And you have to talk to, and you have to talk to city, and it really is,
So
two
we
things.
give you the complaint, and then what do you do with our complaint? Who?
Are you talking about a complaint against a police officer?
Or so if you're talking about a complaint against a police officer, that goes to IPR, they investigate it, there's a finding. If somebody doesn't like the finding, they come to us. If you're talking about changing the practice that we can't even look at use of deadly force cases, that you take up with the city council, and you go talk to them. There's another piece that would also that is slightly more wonky, but it is even more, or is just as important, and that is we have what's called a standard of review of how we can look at these cases, all our cases, and our standard of review is a reasonable person. We have to say, what a reasonable person might do.
Could have.
Or could have done, yes. And to a person, at least I think so, on the CRC, we said, no, that's the wrong standard. We shouldn't be held to that standard. We should be held to the preponderance of the evidence, so that if most of the evidence points in that direction, that's the way it should go. The reasonable person standard is sort of a more deferential standard, is not as strong. And we've been saying now for 3 or 4 years at least, that we're being held to the wrong standard. That's also in city code. That's what you take up with the city council. That would be enormously helpful in our work.
I got a question for you.
Things up with city council, you don't have to wait until the item is on their agenda. There are 5 city council members, including the mayor, and you can make appointments to talk to those people. And their staff. Individually or in groups, go talk to them about the changes you want. And talk to them again and again and again, so that when the agenda comes up, it's not like new information to them. They've already heard it.
Can I just say I really take offense in a way to what you're telling us right now, because while what you're saying might be the truth, that we could go to city council to do that, first of all, many of us have done that. Many of us have tried over the years to get meetings with people that we need to talk to, and they refuse to meet with us for
Well, they're
all
not
different
refusing
kinds of,
anymore.
all different
So
kinds
we
of
need to do the
meetings,
protocol.
right? So that's just a time thing. When you're telling us that you need our help, great, and we're saying we are here to help you. One of the things you guys said is, when we said, well, who the hell do we go to, right? You mentioned the city club and people like that.
And that's
Those
what
are the gatekeepers. Those are the
Not
people who
city.
are gonna look
Not
at us.
the gates.
They're
That's
gonna
not
look
the
at
gates.
us like we're a piece of crap because we are to them, because we're the protesters getting in the way of their pretty city.
You know what?
So you guys have
We're
to,
not the protesters, we're the people.
right,
And our voices
okay,
matter.
but.
And if we go to City Club and we stomp up in there the same way that we did the state capitol, the same way, they're gonna talk to us.
What I'm saying
We
is-
haven't been able to talk on our own behalf. We've had people, the gatekeepers are the ones that sit at the table and don't acknowledge that they don't have power and don't ask us to come to city council. Don't make it an agenda item for us to talk about racial profiling, and don't have an agenda item talking about in-custody deaths as it pertains to the 25% of the black people in this city that are being the victims of it. They're not speaking on our behalf. So now at this point, you're not a protester, you're a Don't Shoot Portland community advocate, and you have to learn how to self-advocate. If these attorneys and people that are sitting on this board are giving us advice on who we need to go to, all we need to do is write it down on our calendar and be there. Because that's the only way that we can back them up. They have acknowledged that they have no power. But guess who does? You do. And we can't wait for somebody else to use that power.
I do have
You have to
power.
use it.
I do have power, and I
That's
take
what I'm
my
saying.
power, and when I use my power, that power gets stopped at a whole lot of doors,
It's
not
not gonna
every
be
door.
stopped anymore because
Yeah.
we're pushing.
Coming
We're gonna
numbers.
push together. Let's acknowledge what they're saying.
We all have the same issue. I mean, we're unable to push our agenda sometimes in city council. We're
They're
unable
dealing
to
with
push it with the
bureaucracy.
police
We're
department,
not.
but you just can't take no for an answer. You have to keep pushing.
Yes, we do, and we gotta stay out of that negative state of mind, and we gotta stay focused on thinking positive at all
We gotta
times.
just get
Sometimes we
shit
can block
done.
our own
Let's get shit done.
blessings by being negative and thinking negative.
And one thing, if I may, and I'm not in Jim's head, but I think one of the points he was making is the more different groups we have that are coordinated around the same thing, the more perspectives it is. It's no longer just, oh, this group over here that's protesting. It's if people get coordinated and if we get aligned, and it's not just kind of these bubbling up, isolated comments, but it's a reoccurring theme
And
that
there are
people
these
come to
little
different
parts.
angles.
It's supporting the little parts. It's supporting a change in a directive. It's the burden of proof. It is the question of reviewing officer-involved shootings and in-custody deaths. If you can change one of those, they're going to begin to fall. But you have to take off little bites, one at a time.
Two things. One is, I haven't looked through everything. Is your contact information on here so that I can, or I can get cards, it doesn't matter to me, I'm easy.
Irene, if you can put your email addresses, I mean, the easiest way, that's one of the things we need to do.
Well, I want to be able to directly approach you, so I'll get
Okay.
yours.
But I
The
was
other
gonna say-
question was going to be, on the day that we schedule, because I believe that that's something that we will probably do, is on the day that we schedule our hearings for, in the city council on these issues, can we count on you to come and stand behind us and present with us?
Well, we'll like on the crowd control work group,
On these issues?
on those issues?
On these issues
Yes,
about
on those issues,
about
yes.
changing the way that business is done so that we get to see the things that are going on for these other types.
Absolutely.
And also so that you can broaden your purview.
And hopefully, we will recognize the fact that we're all there for the same purpose and we're going to be
That's
talking about
what,
the
that's
same
what
issues.
I'm talking about.
Yes.
I'm asking if we force this up onto the calendar, are you gonna come?
Yes.
All right, then count on us.
And even more than that, everybody's been asking us over the last couple of weeks, like,
Thank you.
they want to ask us as a matter of fact, the question like, what are your demands? And one of the reasons that we're here today is because we don't want to make loose demands that are watered down with no value. We want to be able to work with Dan, we want to work with the CRC, we want to work with the IPR to establish what those demands are and how they're going to affect us.
Right.
So
You have
that's
to-
the bigger question.
You have
It's
to
not
hold
just
them
me.
down to issues that people can't step around.
Absolutely, and I think that one of the reasons why everybody's asking us to do that is because they know that it's a complex situation. We're not in a rush to push that agenda. We're in a rush to be educated as a group and to share that education with the community so that when we do make those demands and the processes are in a place to be changed, that it makes sense. And so, I mean, just as a community member and somebody that's out there on the front line, we are counting on you guys for, and, you know, encouraging that dialogue and direct engagement with us so that it makes sense. Because Dan keeps saying, well, you know, I don't know everything. I'm like, well, with the relationships that we're doing, I think that he does too. I've been knowing for almost 5 years now. But I want to make sure that when we utilize the community's power to push these directives and to make sure that the recommendations are solidified within our bureaucracy or whatever we want to call it, our ordinances and all that other stuff. That it's an ask that won't be watered down, that it won't just be neglectful, that it's not just silly.
There are at least two other venues where you can really have an impact. One is there is a training advisory committee, which is a long way along on their training, but attending their meetings and finding out who those people are, and I don't have the complete list here, but getting to know them and communicating with them about these same issues play out again in the training area all the way through. So getting to know them and advocating with them, I think, is important. And what was the other? CPRC. Yeah, the CPRC. I was thinking of something else. Oh, under the DOJ agreement, the citizen, what is it called? The community COAB is going to be formed, and now it's only going to last for 3 years, so it's not a permanent solution, but to attend their meetings and know what they're talking about and being an advocate there will be important as well.
Or even apply to be a member.
Yeah,
The applications are available till January 9th, I believe. And if you don't know how to get them, Dan can help you.
We have them on our page.
A couple of things. First of all, there's nothing that says the COAB has to go away in 3 years. That means that or the agreement, the settlement agreement could last for 5 years, and the city could choose to keep the COAB in place as long as they want to. Right? There's no reason for it to dissolve it if it turns out to be an effective body. So let's not write the ordinance before the ordinance is written.
Or interpret the policy.
But two, just in terms of, I know how powerless everybody feels. I've been doing this 23 years. I know how powerless it feels out here. But when we started, we had this thing called PIAC, which didn't have most of the powers that IPR and CRC have. That was the review board then. Now, since 2001, we have IPR and CRC. When they first wrote that ordinance, they said, we're not going to deal with deadly force incidents because it's too sensitive, it's too emotional. And then Jose Mejia was shot in a hospital, in a psychiatric hospital here, and the people marched into City Hall, and they said, okay, we'll deal with deadly force incidents, but we're only going to contract for outside consultants every year to look at the shooting, which is a step forward, but not what we need. And then in 2010, after Aaron Campbell shot, we said we want more. IPR now goes out on the scene when there's a deadly force shooting to look at the police detectives who are doing their work. That's not what we want, but we're closer to where we want to be because we keep pushing, because we all keep pushing. All of you, all of us at Cop Watching, the community keeps pushing. So it's not like slavery ended overnight. It's not like women got the right to vote overnight. It's not like we got police accountability overnight. But we're going to get there. And we're going to get together. I appreciate that CRC.
And that's what they say. So that we don't reinvent the wheel, we're here with the people that are on the front line. And if we can start using our power and our voices and our opportunity to educate one another, we can push and move as necessary. And that's why we're here.
And it's a lot of work. I mean, don't underestimate it, but you also have to decide that you're going to continue on with it till you get what you want.
And at the point that we're at right now is that we're losing our children. We're losing our babies on the street, and it is, in this country, there are two American justice systems. And as minorities, or minor priorities, or however our Congress and our government look at us, we want to stand up because we need to save our next generation. We need to ensure that they have a life that is worth living in this country, that they have access to opportunities. And so our fight is not going to be going away anytime soon. We don't have the luxury of giving up the opportunity to work with you guys. We don't have that luxury.
David, if I might, you had raised some questions before you.
That's not like a lot of us here are not affected by this. I mean, I can tell you right now, rich people aren't targets of police brutality, and that's the main issue is because people of lower class and middle class are being affected, and nobody's doing anything, and there's no, but we're here now. That's all that matters. We're here now, and we're definitely not going away anytime soon because we fight for, like she said, the next generation.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure if she's done that.
Okay.
So I hear a lot of different groups are involved in this. So my question is there any, is there a coalition that's set up? I know there's the Biden Ministerial Alliance, there's, you know, there's this group over here, that group, the other group, and all the groups. But is there any unified coalition that speaks with each other? Like maybe one of your group meets with, or speaks and coordinates with one member of everybody else's group so that we have a whole bunch of groups involved? Or are we going to continue to be a bunch of separate groups? Are we going to ever coalesce into one large group? Are we going to come to meetings and continue to leave here and go back to our separate groups?
Running for emperor or what?
That's a good question.
Yeah, David, if I might, this is totally consistent with the point that you had made earlier. So let me cover both points. I understand that some of you folks are meeting regularly with the mayor's office.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and they've asked you, what are your demands? I respectfully suggest to you that you say a couple of things for demands. That you want to see IPR, Independent Police Review, and the Citizen Review Committee have jurisdiction over officer-involved shootings and in-custody deaths, which include police shootings. That's number one. Number two, and I apologize for the legal terminology, but it's called the standard of review. Right now, the standard is exceedingly deferential to the police department. It isn't a true fresh look, okay? So those are two things. Jurisdiction over in-custody deaths, officer-involved shootings, change in the standard of review, okay? And if you can arrange with the mayor and the police commissioner a meeting with the director of IPR and some of us, this Constantine Severe, I'll volunteer my time to come to a meeting like that and support what you're saying and other folks. So that's, you want to get self started? That's number one. Number two, consistent with his question, is there's nothing that stops you folks with your excellent organizing ability of getting other groups involved. And we've already mentioned the Albina Ministerial Alliance. I mean, there could be others. But when the time comes, that if you're able to even get this before the city council, and if one assumes that the police union is going to fight this, maybe they won't. But the greater the amount of community support from as many different groups as possible, okay, the stronger is the chance that you're going to get something passed that's meaningful.
Well, the mayor's office has asked us if we'll meet with them for the first of a series of meetings over the next 6 months, January 10th at 1 o'clock. And that can be at a position where we want to meet. So I'm inviting you guys to that meeting, and I'm hoping that we can have a dialogue, an intimate dialogue, before those meetings occur. Because I know that it's, you know, Christmas season and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa, and then we got New Year's and all that. But if we have a meeting already scheduled for January 10th, which should be 4.5 hours, I think that it takes the energy and time that we all have to meet before then, so that when we do have that meeting, it is a beneficial meeting, and that there's a broader understanding of our value and our power, because that is with the mayor.
Is that
And
here?
I think it's here. I haven't told them where we're going to do it. They wanted to put us in a spot. How about doing key deals? So no, you're not about to just put us where you want. We'll choose the space, but the January 10th date is solid. It's solid.
Well, I'm
at
sure
1
that
o'clock.
more than one of us can be there.
And I think hopefully we can meet together before then, right? All right, so that we can all be prepared, but that is the first of a series of meetings. And we do have a communication agenda item set up for January 21st. So we can follow that meeting with the January 21st meeting, and hopefully they'll put us on an agenda item.
So a lot of the solutions that you're proposing are sort of after the fact, but what about before? What about being proactive, about profiling, and trying to avoid situations in which people of color or people experiencing homelessness are harassed or, in worst case scenario, murdered?
There are so many questions that revolve around the potential use of deadly force, and those are some of the right in the middle of the issue. What our work group is trying to focus on is the directives to make sure that the police are given training and their directives require them to use the least force necessary and to not get themselves into a situation where either they or a member of the public is endangered as a result. Now it's not always avoidable, but we think there are more ways to avoid those situations, and that's where we're trying to hone these directives. Whether, we've already had a work group on racial profiling, haven't we? I don't know. But I mean, there are other issues, and if you can help us organize ourselves around some of those, we would be glad to look at forming a work group to deal with those issues. I mean, if we can help in those areas, we will.
And those work groups are open to the public?
Right. They're public
That's another way they can participate as well.
And people that are not CRC members can be members of the work group.
Is this a specific, is this a specific board, like are you guys all part of the board and this is just it, or is there room for improvement and is there room for?
We have just gone through a recruitment process for the board. I don't know what the future of recruitment will be, but there will be continuing openings on this board. And as I say, every meeting is open, and people like Dan and the League of Women Voters have been probably every meeting we've ever had. So you can certainly be as actively involved as you're willing to be. Yes? Yes.
Can you just give us information as far as on your website or any contact information? I feel like as a young person, I'm 25. A lot of the legislative stuff, it just goes over our head. We're young and undereducated unless you're studying law. We want to make a change. We want to know what's being said, but I feel like it's coming to us in a way that we just aren't getting it.
Right.
So I feel like a lot of the people that are protesting, that are enraged, are young people that see their friends falling beside them. So I feel like there needs to be dialogue that is young and fresh and comprehensible to the younger college-age student, and not just a bunch of rhetoric and section. It needs to be interpreted. I don't know if you guys have someone on your board, or if there's a volunteer opportunity or an internship that someone that is able to, transcribe all these laws, etc. So that anybody can click on the website and see what CRC is and what they represent.
Do we have sometimes you almost have to read, if you're really interested, if you read these decisions, you're amazed. Because all the facts are there, and you realize how it is how the law came to be what it is today. I'm a lawyer, so it's fascinating to me, but
That's her point. That's exactly her point, and I don't know why it's a laughable moment for
But
you.
how to make it accessible, I don't know, why
understand.
can't we have those on our website?
Again, you're laughing, I don't understand why.
He was laughing at, not
I
that
just don't understand.
concept, I don't think he was laughing at.
That's
He
a
was
serious
laughing at it.
issue.
But very interesting because he's a lawyer.
For anybody else who wants to join in this interest, I think it's really interesting. You look at Tennessee versus Garner. It's about a kid who's running from the police, and he's wanted for a felony, and he's not armed, and the police shoot him in the back. And
But you're not really.
but that's an important thing to know. How do we get to where we are?
David, if I may. So I'm not a lawyer, and I understand what you're saying. It's so much of it is context, and if you're not coming from a law context, it's like a whole different language.
Exactly.
And I personally, and I don't know if anyone else on the CRC, I'm willing to work, to find a way to make it a little more accessible. I have no jurisdiction over the city website, but I'd be willing to figure out a way to essentially translate what's happening so that people can get that information really quickly
Right.
in an operation.
Because what I'm looking at, I think I'm not being offensive in any way, in anything that I say right now. What I'm looking at a board of 5 or 6 Caucasian people. Half of you are over 40, I'm assuming.
Barely.
The people, the numbers that you guys are gonna need in order to be our front line to push for these changes are people that aren't even 18. These are high school students, middle school kids are out. There's a youth rally on Saturday. I'm sure I'm gonna see hundreds of young people under 25 that are in school for art, etc., not in school for law,
we don't understand the context. And I feel like that should be one of the important parts of what you guys do, is maybe having someone even volunteer their time or internship or et cetera, that can help transcribe and give us the language in layman terms so we get it, because if we don't get it, we can be outraged and just saddened, but we don't know what is being said. We don't know what we can do. Get us from A to B with the language.
So with me, I'm not a lawyer as well. I'm a basketball coach, right? I'm in my 20s. I went to high school here, went to Benson. I went to UP, so I have a college degree, but legal talk, I took one legal class in college. And this is my first year in the CRC. I've been here about a year now. And they pretty much plunge you in head first. And you have no training on how it's supposed to work besides a 2-hour meeting with somebody. And so for me, I'm not paid for this, so I had to spend my time learning the lingo, right? I was at meetings and I was at hearings and I had to read investigations and I had to read policy, and it's still a struggle for me, but I understand more than I did a year ago, and that took commitment on my part to go through policies. And even when we study stuff we're talking about now, I still have to go through policies and try to understand it. So I do agree that we need to figure out a way to make it so everybody can understand it in an easier source. But it's two-sided. It also has to take a lot of engagement from
To rebuttal that, if we look in this room, half the people in here are under 30. That is commitment. Half of the people aren't here because of the room change, et cetera, building change. The majority of people in the Don't Shoot PDX movement are under 30. So we are taking the effort. My brother's 14. He wants to know what's going on. We need something to hook us, hook the youth. If you're wanting the numbers, you say, we need you in the numbers to come out. We need something to hook the students, the high school, college age students, because we're not getting what's going on. We're mad and enraged. We see on the media children dying here, left and right. But even the lingo from the people that are supposed to be the forefront, we're not getting it. We need that. We are putting the effort. I'm here, I'm 25.
We have a director of outreach for IPR, and we have an outreach work group. And one thing we don't have is a direct contact to people who would like the information that we have. I would be happy if IPR could contact us and say, we have, you mentioned something on Saturday.
Yes.
If you were to contact Irene and say, we're going to have a meeting at such and such school or whatever on Saturday, and this is going to be college students or high school students, and they want to know about police misconduct and review. And would one of us be available to come and talk? Because I know you're going to get more than one of us, because we all, we're spending all our time in this room.
I think the accessibility for somebody that doesn't have those connections also, that, can I go on the computer and find out in simple language what it is that you guys are doing? But I sat here and listened to you for the beginning of your entire speech, and I'm still kind of spinning through my head what the heck you're saying.
Well, Chuck, let me let you know why we even made this event happen. Is because he reached out to us because we went to the Rose Center, the Rose Room over there at City Hall last week after we all went in and filed our investigations after the proposal. They knew that because of our action and the work that we're doing on the ground, that a connection could build all of these things that we're all talking about. It wasn't already in there. Nobody's on our behalf have said the same things that are being said here today. So this is our first step. If out of this first step, everybody that's here for the first time, because I go to City Archives to do all my research. I've been working with Irene for years. I've been down with Dan and those guys. So everything that they're saying, that's how I had to learn. And I didn't have a law degree. Right. So it takes the energy that we're putting into walking and marching and everything. You know how everybody thinks we're just protesters. This is acknowledging that there's more to happen. That's why we put this on the event page, because we're going to educate the people that are supporting the movement and being able to bring these things up, and you guys saying, this is what we need, this is what we need, this is what we need. That's what we can build as a coalition.
And I think that's what I'm trying to say. So there's like I feel like there's like a language barrier. You speak a certain way, you speak business, and a young person is not going to speak that way, And just like,
Well, that's what teaching is all about.
secretaries speak
We
a
have
certain
to-
way,
We have to
you
teach
know,
this.
yes, and so, you know, and I think that that's what we should, on both sides.
Later, we
All
can
of
get
it.
somebody
Is
to.
reach out and speak a different language, you know, speak a simpler language. And, you know, I get confused just looking at law. Sometimes I do it, and it's like a loopy loop. And it kind of, no, I'm serious. Yeah, it goes, you look at a policy and you go all the way to the policy, and it absolves the person that you, it absolves that thought altogether. So that's where I'm kind of confused. Like, when you talk about interpretation,